Someone once told me, you can create the life you want. And my immediate response was, no, you can't. You can't just do whatever you want. You can't just wake up one day and decide your life is going to be completely different. And I did truly believe that. At that time, I was exhausted. I was deeply unhappy. I was trapped inside of a career I didn't enjoy and feeling like that's as good as life was ever going to get for me. I wasn't trying to build a dream life. I was just trying to survive the one that I had. So when someone suggested that I could create a different reality for myself, I dismissed it immediately. But 7 years later, I'm living a life that version of me that said those words would never have believed was possible. So how did I get here? I began to question the voice inside of me that kept saying, that's not possible for someone like you. And this is the story of how I learned how to. Many of you may not know this, but my background is in fitness. I went to school for exercise science and I worked as a personal trainer and nutrition coach for 15 years. And there was a part of that work that I really did enjoy. I loved watching people accomplish things that they never thought was possible. I loved watching them gain confidence and realize this part of themselves that they didn't know existed. But at the same time, I felt really disconnected from my work. And if I'm really honest with myself, it was never something that I wanted. It was a very clear, identifiable career path that fit in a very clear box. And the path to getting there was straightforward. So I took it because I didn't yet have the understanding that I wasn't limited to paths that already existed. Deep down, I was pretty miserable. I kept telling myself that I just needed a different opportunity or a different gym or different clients or different circumstances. But it didn't matter what changed around me. The same thought kept coming up, which is that I felt extremely trapped. I was working early mornings and late nights. I was barely making any money. I wasn't being treated very well. And underneath all of that was this very quiet belief that maybe this is just how life worked for me. That maybe this was all I was ever going to be able to create. I never said that out loud, but it was there, loud and clear in my mind. And because it was there, I made decisions that reflected it. I settled. I accepted things that didn't feel good. I took opportunities that weren't aligned. I convinced myself that crumbs were enough because I wasn't sure that I deserved more. Eventually, I took a job that had more red flags than I care to admit. I saw them, I clocked them, and I ignored them. I told myself that the experience would be worth it. It wasn't. I was working very long hours, making very little money, and being treated extremely poorly, and the entire time just questioning myself. Why, after 10 years of experience in the industry, was I still struggling? Why was it so difficult for me to build a career? Why was it so challenging for me to make money? Why was I still dealing with employers that didn't value me or care about my well-being? Why did it feel like I was working harder than ever and getting absolutely nowhere? Eventually, while working that job, I reached a breaking point. I remember one day collapsing onto my bathroom floor, just feeling completely overwhelmed and frustrated and defeated, and thinking, this is the best that you can do. This is what all you're capable of creating with your life. And I felt so stupid and like a waste of space. and absolutely humiliated by my life. That moment was pivotal for me. That moment is what I like to call a 2x4 moment. You know when life is trying to show you something but you refuse to see it? So it just keeps getting louder and louder until one day it hits you over the head with a metaphorical 2x4, just knocking you right on your ass, so you're forced to pay attention. That's what that was for me. Life had been trying to reflect the same lesson back to me for years. I just hadn't been willing to see it. I didn't believe that I was worthy of asking for more. So I continued to take whatever life was willing to give me. My self-worth was so low that I took the crumbs and called it fate. Just chalked it up to the fact that I wasn't deserving of more. And because of that belief system, that's what the world continued to reflect back to me until I literally couldn't take it anymore and was brought to my knees. So as I lay there on my cold bathroom floor, this crossroads appeared in my mind in front of me. Both paths just seemingly littered with obstacles. Path number one, I quit my job and start looking for another one. Something I had been doing for the last 10 years and it got me absolutely nowhere, but maybe something would change. And path two, quit my job and start my own business. A complete unknown and something that filled me with fear just thinking about it because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know anything about starting or running a business. I didn't know anyone else that had business. I didn't know the first thing about getting clients, like who was gonna work with me? How was I gonna make that happen? And what happens if I did it and I failed and I lost everything? So these were my two options. I could do the same thing I've always done and expect a different result, or I could do the scary thing, a complete unknown, and maybe something would change. And if I was a complete failure and nothing worked, I would just end up right back where I started. But at least I would have tried something new. So I fought against every part of me that was screaming, you can't do this. You're gonna fail. You have no idea what you're doing. And I started taking very small steps to open my own gym. First, I went and bought equipment. Then I built a website. Then I downloaded an app where people go looking for personal trainers so that they could find me. I didn't think about the outcome. I just focused on the next step in front of me. So in September 2019, I officially opened my gym and started training clients. And I knew almost immediately that I had made the right decision because for the first time in my life, I began trusting my own instincts. Before that, I was constantly second-guessing myself, questioning what I knew, looking to other people for answers, asking for advice because I didn't trust my own judgment. And suddenly, that wasn't an option anymore. Not because I had more confidence, but because I was forced to rely on myself. There was nobody to hide behind anymore. Nobody telling me what to do, nobody whose opinion I could rely on when I doubted my own. There was no roadmap, just me. And then, 6 months into my brand new business, a worldwide pandemic happened. And I had to shut down for 5 whole months. And what happened next surprised me. I was relieved because I didn't want to go back. I couldn't deny the fact that there was a part of me that hated the brand new business that I had just created. And that realization scared me more than the shutdown itself, because I had to acknowledge what I had been avoiding for years, which is that I didn't really enjoy working in fitness. I knew how to do it. I was good at it. I was experienced. I was educated. But when I was really honest with myself, it was never actually something that I wanted. And this realization filled me with fear, because what the hell could I do about it? Fitness was my identity. It's what I knew. It's what I went to school for. It's what I spent my entire life learning and building. I had no other skills. It's the only thing I knew how to do. So this sent me into a complete tailspin, because now that I had acknowledged that I was miserable, I couldn't keep going, but I also didn't see another path forward. And as I silently fought with this newfound awareness, something else happened. At this time, I was spending a lot of time alone in my gym listening to podcasts while the world was shut down. And I heard something that completely stopped me. This girl was being interviewed about her experience becoming a travel blogger. And she said, "You can literally create the life you want." And my immediate response was, no, you can't. You can't just create the life you want. Life doesn't work that way. There are limitations and restrictions and circumstances. You can't just take off and do whatever you want. But for whatever reason, I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. And it just kept echoing in my mind. You can literally create the life you want. How could that be true? How could that be possible? But eventually, something inside of me shifted, and I decided to consider the fact that she wasn't completely full of BS. Because she clearly believes it. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said it. And if she believes it, it's because she did it. And if it's possible for her, why wouldn't it be possible for me? I decided to ask myself the same questions. How could that be true? How could that be possible that you can create the life you want? But I changed the intonation to, how could that be true? How could that be possible? And shifting the intonation of those questions opened something for me. Rather than being completely dismissive of what she was saying, I allowed myself to get curious instead. I allowed myself to question my belief system rather than hers. And I allowed myself to find evidence that there was truth there rather than evidence that there wasn't. So I began to consider what I would create if this were true. If it were true that I could create whatever I wanted, what would that even look like? I had never even considered that before. I had never considered what I would create if I could create anything I wanted. I had spent so much time reacting to life that I had never intentionally imagined one. The first answer was pretty simple. I knew I didn't want to live in Michigan forever. And I also knew that I didn't want a brick and mortar business. I wanted to be able to work remotely so I could be more transient. And that was all I knew. But that was enough. I didn't need the whole roadmap. I just needed the first step. The next step was more challenging, which was, how could I work remotely? My first instinct was to come up with as many reasons as possible that it wouldn't work. But then I remembered that the point of this exercise was to come up with solutions, not problems. So I began to ask myself, what is something that I could do that would allow me the freedom I was looking for? And the answer just came to me immediately. Nutrition coaching. It was close enough to what I was doing and sort of within the same skill set, and it felt believable that I could make that transition. So I took a nutrition course to brush up on my skill set and started offering that service. But when I started working with clients, I became aware of something that I hadn't paid too much attention to before. Most people didn't struggle because they lacked information. Generally speaking, they knew which foods supported their goals and which didn't. The challenge wasn't knowledge. The challenge was implementation. They knew what to do. It was just very difficult to do it. And the more curious I got about why that was, the more I found myself moving away from nutrition and towards something much deeper. Because when I really listened to what my clients were struggling with, very rarely was the issue food itself. But it seemed like food was being used to cope with something else entirely. Overwhelm, loneliness, shame, the inability to sit with difficult emotions. And I found myself far more interested in understanding the human mind than I was in teaching someone how much protein they should eat. And that curiosity led me from nutrition coaching to life coaching. And I took another course and started working with clients in a more general sense, helping them navigate the ups and downs of life. And it was around that time that I discovered spirituality and started navigating my own intuition. And eventually, I just started fusing everything I had learned into one service that I now refer to as intuitive life coaching. I never had a grand plan. I never foresaw myself doing anything other than fitness. But one step just started revealing itself to the next once I was willing to take the next step and follow what felt right. And as my career was evolving, something else was happening too. I was changing. I started seeing how many of my decisions had been shaped by fear, how many opportunities I had dismissed because I assumed I wasn't capable, and how often I treated my thoughts as facts. I was so tired of listening to that voice inside of me, the one that was constantly questioning my worth, the one that was always second guessing what I knew, and that was always telling me that I wasn't capable of more than the life that I already had. So I began doing my own inner work. I hired a coach and she showed me how to start challenging my old beliefs. And I learned how to stop defining myself by the stories that I had inherited about who I am and what I deserve. And over time, everything just continued changing. And eventually, my husband and I moved from Michigan to California. And along the way, my business and my life became something that I never could have imagined. Not because I wasn't willing to dream big enough, but because I was envisioning my future from the limitations of who I believed I was at the time. What exists today wasn't part of a plan. It emerged one step, one decision, one leap of faith at a time. And every day I wake up and I look around and I can't believe that this is my life. And every part of my day became a reminder of what was possible when I stopped assuming that I already knew what was possible. For years, I had this very fixed idea of who I was, what I was capable of, and what kind of life was possible for me. And because those beliefs felt true, I never questioned them. It never occurred to me that they were simply perspectives, stories, interpretations, things that could be challenged. And what changed my life wasn't waking up one day overflowing with confidence and certainty. It was becoming willing to entertain the possibility that I was wrong about myself, that maybe I wasn't as limited as I thought, that maybe there was more to me than I could currently see, and maybe the future wasn't as fixed as I believed it was. And because I became willing to ask those questions, I started making new decisions. And those new decisions led to new experiences. And those new experiences began reshaping what I believed was possible. And belief became the doorway to change. But the path didn't become visible for me because I could see the entire way forward. The path became visible for me when I became willing to take the next step without needing to see the entire staircase first. You can choose to question the thoughts and beliefs that immediately appear whenever something threatens that voice inside of you that convinces you to stay small. You don't have to, but you can choose to. Because if I never had, I would still be back in Michigan, working a job that I hate, and convinced that that was the only life that would ever be available for me. But because I chose to push back against my old beliefs and allowed myself to get curious with the possibility that this perspective that you can have the life that you want could be true, I allowed myself to see it for myself. And once I did, it became a lot harder to continue to believe the old stories that had been holding me back. And now, here I am, 7 years later, a completely different version of me, living a completely different life. One I was willing to believe in long before I was able to create it. And that's the lesson I'd like to leave you with today. The choice of belief. Because if you're willing to believe, you'll be able to find evidence of the how. The path presents itself when you're willing to perceive it. Maybe not all at once, but the first step will. And slowly, over time, one step will pave the way for the next. And if you're willing to follow the feeling of possibility and excitement that guides you, then you'll discover the possibility that exists inside of believing in you. And maybe you'll look back at this moment in time and realize that this is when things shifted for you. Or maybe you'll be someone reminding someone else of what I'm declaring right now. That you can, in fact, create the life you want, as long as you're willing to believe that's true. If you've been listening to my story and feeling connected to it, and recognizing that maybe there's a part of you that hasn't been willing to second guess your ideas about you, and you're ready to see what's available for you when you do, come work with me. You can reach out to me through my website, amandalaurenblau.com.